I was driving from my home in Maine to Toronto, Canada. In my car, I had a GPS device I was using to plot my route. I reached the border, but instead of Canada, I saw a glitchy white field on the screen. The unit had only shipped with the data for the US. Canada and other countries did not exist. Even though I could clearly see Canada before me, because it wasn't represented on my digital display, it almost felt illusory, like a mirage. Today, we think we have the world at our fingertips, all mapped out before us. But we struggle when our stored representations of the world don't match the real terrain. If the last century was marked by a rabid search for new frontiers by the agents of colonialism and empire, this century is marked by a rabid quantification by agents of digital sensing, data collection, and storage. In this age of what I sometimes call silicolonialism, like silicon, the frontier, the object of manifest destiny, no longer has a place out there. It is a moving target, anywhere and everywhere that has no data. To reach this place, one no longer has to travel in space or time. These blind spots are often hiding in plain sight. If the digital archive is a site of power, the blind spot is its antipode. Those who inhabit the blind spot are stripped of their power in the dominant system, even as they possess their own kind of power as an interruption in the grid, a tear in the net. There is an island in Maine called Malaga, which exists on a map but became a historical blind spot of its own. From the US Civil War until the 1900s, it was home to a small mixed-race community, which was violently evicted by the mainstream culture that considered it a degenerate colony by virtue of its ethnicity's poverty and difference. As our dominant systems struggle to reconfigure themselves and persist, these blind spots hold the promise of other worlds, new ways of knowing. They are no longer out there, but everywhere in space and time and everyday life, in plain sight. Leveraging the value of these places depends on those who are able to see them. This includes their often marginalized inhabitants, as well as travelers, researchers, and others who pass through or learn how to see and infiltrate them. As many actors converge around these sites to try and create new value from them, we must remain critically aware of both who is allowed to create and who benefits from the creation. A famous Proust quote about the artist's gaze says, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." To me, this is a directive not only for us as practitioners to learn to examine the world through multiple lenses and uncover blind spots, but it is also a directive to let the blind spots assert themselves, to let those who inhabit blind spots not only exist, but develop their own practices, rather than being colonized by crisis-prone dominant systems. It's increasingly important for us to make room for new eyes, for new practitioners, not only in a moral sense, but in terms of survival, as we find ourselves in the midst of global environmental and economic crises that cannot be solved under the same terms that created them.